We need to talk about The Better Sister on Amazon Prime, starring Jessica Biel and Elizabeth Banks. I just got done watching all 8 episodes and I'm so excited because, guys, I'm going to talk to you today about my no spoiler review of the show. But then I do want to get into a spoiler recap of the show and what I liked and what I didn't like about the show, okay? But I will give you proper warning when the spoilers are coming. Okay, but before we get started, let me introduce myself. My name is Brandi, and I realize that you could be on any channel in the world right now, but you're right here with me, and I really do appreciate that. So go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel if you do like watching TV show reviews and also movie reviews. So the premise of the show is 2 estranged sisters, played by Jessica Biel and Elizabeth Banks, are reunited and confront their family history after Chloe's husband, Corey Stahl, is murdered in the limited series based on Oliver Burke's book of the same name. I would rate this series a solid 6 over 10, okay? So the reason I didn't give it a higher rating, which I thought I would love it more because I really like Elizabeth Banks and Jessica Biel, is because, for one, the pacing was very sluggish at times. I think these 8 episodes could have been condensed to be just about 6 episodes, or even better yet, this would have been a 10 over 10 thriller movie that could have been less than 2 hours long, okay? Also, there's just a lot of elements of the show, for lack of better words, that are just dumb. A lot of missteps in the writing and the editing, but we're going to get more into that when we dig into spoilers, okay? And lastly, what I didn't like was that the series didn't feel that original. It was really giving me Gone Girl vibes, right? It even had the same detective that starred in Gone Girl. It also drew some similarities to Big Little Lies and Dead to Me. So just wasn't the most original series. Now, what I loved about this series was the acting. Jessica Biel and Elizabeth Banks absolutely killed it, and their chemistry as sisters was 100% believable, okay? And this might sound superficial, but I really liked watching Jessica Biel. You could tell she worked out very hard for this role. She even mentioned in an interview that she felt like she was in food jail. She was doing a lot of cardio, a lot of arm reps. I mean, her arms look great. Her back looks great. I mean, she just looks phenomenal in this series. Also, this series had a very satisfying ending. Everything was tied up neatly with a bow, and it's a limited series, so we're more than likely not going to get a season 2, but I'm happy with the way everything ended. It was just an enjoyable watch. I love a good mystery whodunit, so it definitely checked that box for me. All right, so now we're going to get into a quick spoiler recap. So warning, spoilers ahead, spoilers ahead. You have been warned, okay? So this show is a classic whodunit. The show's central question is, who stabbed Adam Taylor to death? Adam is Chloe's husband. He's a successful attorney. And Chloe herself, she's very successful as well. She's a high-level magazine exec. So we see in episode 1, Chloe is returning home from a very important work event, and she discovers her husband dead on the living room floor. He's been stabbed to death. So Chloe and Adam, they have a teenage son that quickly rises to the top of the suspect list. But we also find out that Ethan is not Chloe's biological son. She is actually his aunt, and his mom is her sister, Nikki. Now, Nikki and Chloe have been estranged for years. Nikki struggles with alcohol addiction, and she is just struggling to make ends meet. So 2 sisters living 2 totally different lives, okay? But it's just crazy. It blew my mind in the first episode just to find out that Chloe married Nikki's ex-husband. Like, oh my gosh, mind-blowing. And we later find out that Chloe and Adam were able to get full custody of Ethan because there was an incident where Nikki neglected 2-year-old Ethan at the time in the pool, and he nearly drowned, according to Adam's police report, okay? More about that in just a bit. So we see the sisters reunite. They have a very toxic relationship. You could tell that they hate each other. They're arguing back and forth. And you could really tell that Nikki loves her son Ethan. She really does. Even though she has not been around, you could just feel the love through the screen that she has for this little boy. So both sisters have the shared objective to keep Ethan out of jail. They do not want him to go to jail for the rest of his life for killing Adam. So they have a united front. Meanwhile, Chloe is trying to find other suspects. Who could have killed her husband? She suspects it could have been his boss, Bill, or maybe it was a shady company that he was working with. Again, he was a high-powered attorney, and he had a client called the Gentry Group, and they were very shady. So she's just trying to come up with her own suspect list to kind of get the heat off of her son, Ethan, whom, although she's his stepmom, she loves him like he is her own son. So this little boy has two women that really care about him. So Michelle, Chloe's lawyer, which I loved her character, by the way. She was a very good attorney. She encouraged Chloe, like, tell me everything about your life. Like, she wanted to know what angle she could take to bring Ethan home. And she needed to know everything about Jessica Biel, all of her dirty laundry, okay? So then fast forward and we're at the trial. And this is what I mean about the show being very sluggish. We wasted about 3 episodes of them just destroying Ethan's character and talking about him as if he was the murderer, and come to find out he wasn't. So on the stand, we see Chloe. She airs out her dirty laundry. She admits that Adam was abusive to her, and she tells the court that her son Ethan knew nothing about the abuse at all. And the one person that did know that her husband was abusive was the man she was having an affair with, Jake, aka Adam's co-worker, aka their neighbor. So that gave Jake a motive to want to kill Adam. So Jake, he goes up to the stand. He has to testify as a witness, and he basically like pleads the fifth to everything. So with him being on the stand, Ethan was able to come home because that casted reasonable doubt. And now it looks like Jake could potentially be the murderer, or the murderer is just still on the loose, but it's definitely not Ethan. So now Ethan is home, and you'll be happy to see that Nikki and Chloe's relationship is getting a little bit better. There's still a lot of tension between the two sisters, but you can tell just their love for Ethan is really bringing them closer together, okay? We see Nikki, she's having conversations with Chloe about their past. She admits that their dad SA'd her, and that their dad, he used to put alcohol, whiskey to be exact, in her hot chocolate since she was 10 years old. So one thing I liked about the show too was just the messaging. Like, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, because you would look at Nikki and write her off as just a drunk, right? But you don't know the reason behind that. And come to find out, it was because her dad made her that way. So the detectives are still continuing their investigation. This detective is getting on my nerves, Detective Nancy, but she's funny in a way too. But nonetheless, she is now becoming suspicious of Nikki. She pops up at one of Nikki's AA meetings, and she is able to obtain a discarded cigarette that Nikki throws onto the ground, okay? So now Nikki realizes that Nancy is on to her. And again, Nikki is just really street smart. She starts to tell Nancy, and she follows Nancy to an assisted living facility, and she sees her taking care of a black guy. And we don't know the reason or anything like that, but we know that she followed him. And then we see Nikki, fast forward a little bit, and she meets with a tech guy, like a PI tech guy that used to work for Chloe, actually. And he uncovers that Nancy was involved in a scandal where she beat the wrong black man nearly to death. And that's why that black man is in the assisted facility. So Nikki has an angle now. So she's like, I'm going to get Nancy off of my tail. I'm going to expose her past, and I'm going to cause a media frenzy, okay? Again, Nikki was just very smart in this show. Chloe is getting just a bit suspicious of her sister as well. But Nikki finally comes clean and admits to her sister that she actually killed Adam. What a twist. This was such a good twist in my opinion. But I can't lie, I did see this coming. I was taking notes while I was watching this show. And Nikki was at the top of my suspect list. I had 5 suspects and she was at the top, but I wasn't quite sure if she was the murderer or not. She saw Ethan at their father's funeral 5 years before, and her and Ethan had been exchanging text messages, and Ethan confided in her that Chloe was being abused by his dad. So Big sister was still very protective, although they were estranged. And she can't believe that her little sister was going through this abuse, the same abuse that she went through when she was with Adam. So she went to their home to talk to Chloe to, just try to tell her that she's there for her and to try to get her out of that situation. But when she goes to their home, Adam opens the door and they get into an argument. Adam gets physically abusive with her first, and in self-defense, she kills Adam. Okay, so now she confesses this to her sister, and it's like, wow, now is Chloe going to be upset that Nikki killed her husband? But no, I was so happy that Jessica Biel was not upset. Jessica Biel was like, listen, in a nutshell, blood is thicker than water. You know, this man did her wrong as well. He was abusive. He was toxic. So she was going to do anything that needed to be done to cover up this crime. So now we see Chloe. She's working hard again to find another suspect. In fact, she actually plants evidence that incriminates Bill, Adam's boss, of the murder. Okay. So, and then Nikki, she sows her seed of the damaging information that she had on Detective Nancy, and she gives it to Catherine, the head of the magazine that Chloe works at. And Catherine knows exactly what to do with that information. So the information goes viral, and Nancy is put on a leave of absence, and all of the information, that damaging information that she had on Nikki, is laid to rest. They cannot use that information at all. And Bill is arrested for killing Adam. Okay. And then the show ends off on a cliffhanger. I don't know why they threw this at the end, but we see Jake washed up on the shore. And he appears to be dead. So I don't know, was that cliffhanger at the end just to insinuate that maybe Nikki and Chloe took it a step farther and killed Jake? I don't know. I don't think that was even necessary at this point, because at this point I was already just wow, Nikki was actually the killer. And just to see that the two sisters just, again, we're just on a united front, just trying to protect each other at this point and keep Nikki out of jail. All right, guys. So I know that was a very convoluted recap. I left out a lot of secrets that they divulged and a lot of details. But again, this show could have really been condensed. It was too much at times, too many little details, okay? But I do want to talk now about some questions or concerns I have after watching the show. For one, that merry-go-round knife. This knife was moving all over the place, the murder weapon, okay? We see when Chloe discovers the body, she runs out of the house, and it appears that she drops the knife. And then somehow we see a few episodes later that Nikki finds the knife in the glove department. And then the knife ends up being at the house, and Chloe puts it in the basket near the entryway of the home. I was so confused, and I could not keep up with the knife. And I'm usually very good with keeping up with shows, keeping up with the murder weapon. But I definitely think that was a writing snafu or editing snafu in this series. Comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on that knife too. So another question I have was, it was just self-defense, Nikki. Why not just say you killed Adam out of self-defense? Mind you, she had found out the information already from the police department that Adam lied on her about that entire pool situation where she neglected the then 2-year-old Ethan. She knew that he had staged everything just so him and Chloe could get custody of Ethan at that time. So I'm just not sure why she just didn't claim self-defense. But again, then it wouldn't have been the series that it was, right? If she just came clean. I was also wondering, like, if she loved Ethan so much, which she did, it seemed to be really risky, the route that she took, because Ethan could have literally went to jail for murder, and Nikki was actually the one that committed the crime. So why didn't she confess when she didn't have to confess right away when Ethan was arrested, but when things were getting closer and he was looking like he was going to jail, I was just surprised that she didn't confess. Also, it was so sad to me just to draw the parallels between their father and Adam. Like, they both ended up with somebody that was POS, just like their dad, right? Adam was abusive. He even lied on Nikki just to get custody of his son. I thought that was low down and dirty. But I thought it was even more low down and dirty that Chloe believed him. Like, she did not trust her sister at all. I know Nikki had her flaws and she was an addict, but man, I was so glad she got her redemption at the end. I can't imagine how she felt. And the last question I had, well, I have many more questions. I could go on and on and on. But one of the last questions I have is, who was actually the better sister? And I would have to say that neither one were the better sister, okay? They both had their flaws. Nikki, I was glad to see a happy ending for her. Chloe, she was flawed as well, okay? And their dad just messed both of them up. Their dad and their mom, for that matter, okay? So neither one were the better sister. Nonetheless, guys, very good series. Let me know what you would rate this series below, okay? Also, let me know what else you're watching, okay? See you on the next video. Peace.